these new images that show 3I Atlas in a whole new light.
A mystery interstellar object that was spotted by astronomers last week. It could be the oldest comet ever seen.
Something metallic is tearing through space, and it's definitely not from Earth. As the object dubbed 3I Atlas streaks across our solar system at more than 130,000 miles per hour, astronomers picked up readings that defied everything they thought they knew. This wasn't some frozen relic drifting in from another star.
We see more than 7 jets that are tightly collimated coming out of this object. And of course, there are 2 possibilities that we considered all along, that these jets are naturally produced.
It was something stranger, a body shedding almost 10 pounds of pure nickel every second. Then the signals appeared. Buried deep within the data, across multiple observatories and orbital sensors, faint rhythmic pulses started to emerge, the kind that seemed to mean something. The scientific community shifted from fascination to disbelief, and then to dread. Because if 3I Atlas isn't a rock, then what exactly is it? The missing iron, a chemical impossibility. Think of a heartbeat without a pulse, or rain that leaves no drops behind. That's what astronomers stumbled upon when 3I Atlas streaked through the solar system. At first, the readings looked like a glitch, maybe a calibration hiccup. But the data held steady. From Hawaii's Keck Observatory to Chile's Very Large Telescope, and from Hubble's optical scans to James Webb's infrared arrays, the story stayed the same. Nickel vapor was pouring from the comet's glowing coma, and iron was nowhere to be found. To most people, that might sound like a minor detail. But to scientists, it's like discovering a heartbeat without a pulse. Nickel and iron are inseparable cosmic twins, born together in the fiery cores of dying stars, fused under the same nuclear conditions, and vaporizing at nearly identical temperatures. Wherever you find one, you always find the other. That's been one of astronomy's few unbreakable rules, until now. So yes, the labs panicked. Teams recalibrated instruments, cross-checked data, and ran independent analyses across continents. Same result every time. Nickel, loud and clear; iron, dead silent. That's when the theories started flying. Some pointed to exotic chemistry, maybe nickel carbonyl compounds, fragile molecules that form when nickel binds with carbon monoxide in ultra-cold interstellar clouds. Others suggested the comet might have originated in an environment so alien that our chemistry simply doesn't apply. But there was a problem. Those compounds shouldn't survive this close to the sun. Radiation would shred them long before they reached us. And yet here they were, intact, abundant, and actively venting into space. Which led to an uncomfortable question. Was this chemistry natural or engineered? Here on Earth, nickel carbonyls are used in industrial metal purification, synthetic, delicate, and designed for purpose. Coincidence? Maybe. But when the comet's emissions looked directional, as if releasing nickel in controlled jets, some researchers began to wonder, what if 3I Atlas wasn't entirely natural? No one would dare publish that idea outright. Not yet. Official papers stuck to careful words like unprecedented and non-standard compositional data. But behind the scenes, something shifted. Government observatories quietly requested full bandwidth data streams. Research timelines were accelerated, private briefings were held. The tone moved from curiosity to concern. Dr. Daryl Z. Seligman of Michigan State University summed it up bluntly. We've detected glowing nickel vapor in the gas surrounding 3I Atlas at a distance far too cold for metals to vaporize. It's extraordinary. It changes how we understand material chemistry beyond our solar system. In other words, this comet was breaking the laws of physics in broad daylight. And that's the haunting beauty of interstellar visitors. They're not just icy rocks on joyrides through our system. They're time capsules, carrying the fingerprints of long-dead stars and ancient worlds we'll never see. But 3I Atlas isn't just a messenger from the past, it's an outlier, a riddle that behaves as though it remembers being built. With nickel burning bright, iron missing, and chemistry itself starting to warp, astronomers were forced to ask the one question they'd been avoiding. What exactly are we looking at? A relic of deep cosmic time, or something shaped by hands, minds, or processes we don't yet understand? And just when they thought the mystery had reached its peak, James Webb looked closer, and the chemistry stopped making sense altogether. 3I Atlas and the carbon dioxide enigma. James Webb, with its unmatched infrared vision, locked onto 3I Atlas and immediately broke the scoreboard. Not only was this interstellar object venting metallic nickel, but its chemical mix was off the charts. 8 parts carbon dioxide for every 1 part water. For context, comets in our solar system usually carry around 4% carbon dioxide. That's like finding an ocean made of soda with just a splash of water. At first, no one panicked. Weird readings happen all the time in astronomy. Sensor drift, calibration errors, software quirks. But when the same ratio appeared in data from Hubble, Gemini South, and Teat Observatory, the laughter stopped. Whatever 3I Atlas was made of, it wasn't built in our kind of neighborhood. Normally, comets are frozen cocktails of water, dust, and a bit of carbon dioxide, relics of the early solar system. When sunlight hits them, they vent gas and dust through geysers, creating that glowing tail we all recognize. But 3I Atlas didn't follow the script. Astronomers expected short, chaotic jets, bursts that come and go as the sun warms different patches of ice. Instead, they saw something persistent, a plume that stayed on for hours, maybe longer, burning steady and symmetrical, like a controlled exhaust. That's when they noticed the kicker: 2 tails. One stretching away from the sun, as expected, and another pointing directly toward it. Could be magnetic interference, one physicist suggested. Another proposed charged carbon dioxide ions interacting with solar plasma. The rest just stared. Because if the sun's radiation was pushing on the comet, how could part of the gas be pushing back? It looked less like a reaction and more like a conversation, as if 3I Atlas was exchanging signals with the solar wind. Then James Webb Space Telescope's full-spectrum data dropped, and the situation went from strange to impossible. The 8-to-1 carbon dioxide ratio wasn't just odd, it was unprecedented. Even 2I Borisov, the most carbon-rich comet ever seen, didn't come close. That ratio implied something profound. This object had formed in an environment where carbon chemistry dominated and water was nearly absent, the kind that shouldn't easily produce life as we know it. The scientific community went into overdrive. Was this a relic of a carbon planet? A diamond world shattered and flung into interstellar space? Or the frozen exhaust of a long-dead atmosphere preserved for billions of years? Then came the wildest theory yet. Maybe that jet wasn't natural at all. Carbon dioxide sublimates faster than water ice, generating stronger thrust when heated. If those symmetrical jets were intentional, calibrated to maintain course or spin, then this wasn't just a wandering rock. It was a machine built from physics we barely understood. Data from NASA's SphereX mission made things worse or better, depending on how much you enjoy existential dread. SphereX confirmed enormous amounts of vaporized carbon dioxide in the glowing coma, far more than expected, along with faint traces of deep-buried water ice. That combo shouldn't exist. Dr. Carrie Lissy of Johns Hopkins summed it up. SphereX's finding of very large amounts of vaporized carbon dioxide told us it could be like a normal comet, but the proportions are what make it fascinating. He explained that most comets' ice ratios reveal where they formed. Those born near their stars lose volatile gases early. Those born farther out stay rich in carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide. 3I Atlas didn't match either pattern. It was too carbon-heavy, too chemically distinct, a fingerprint from a star system we've never seen. Some researchers now believe it might have come from deep within the Milky Way's thick disk, 2 to 3 times older than any comet ever observed. It's not just ancient, it's galactic fossil ancient. Curiosity began to turn into concern. Because if 3I Atlas could survive for billions of years, carrying impossible metals and unnatural gas ratios across interstellar space. What else might be out there, traveling under the radar? And just as scientists began rewriting their models, something else happened. Something no simulation could explain. More reported anomalies. The gravitational whispers. At first it was just numbers, tiny, almost forgettable blips buried deep in orbital data. But the universe doesn't make mistakes that repeat themselves, and soon, observatories across the world began to notice the same thing. Asteroids weren't where they were supposed to be. It started small, fractions of a degree, micro shifts in position, like someone had nudged the solar system's furniture just an inch to the left. No collisions, no solar wind irregularities, no gravitational tug from Jupiter or any known body. Just a quiet, impossible drift. When scientists compared notes, the realization hit like a chill. Every one of those asteroids had passed within a few million kilometers of 3I Atlas. The same 3I Atlas is already defying chemistry, thermodynamics, and trajectory models. Coincidence? Not a chance. That's when the European Space Agency coined a phrase that would ripple through scientific circles like a rumor in a haunted house. Gravitational whispering. The term sounded poetic, almost harmless, but what it described was anything but. Gravitational whispering meant that something was bending space-time so faintly that it barely registered, yet precisely enough to alter orbits of massive celestial bodies. These weren't random fluctuations, they were coordinated distortions. Imagine space itself humming under its breath. Not loud enough to hear, but just enough to move pebbles on the floor. That's what 3I Atlas seemed to be doing. The space around it wasn't just bending, it was listening. Astrophysicists ran every model they could think of. Gravitational perturbations, solar wind pressure, micrometeoroid impacts. None of them fit. These shifts were too consistent, too synchronized. Whatever force was at play seemed localized, almost like a field. And here's where things got truly eerie. The affected asteroids didn't simply drift. Their trajectories curved toward 3I Atlas ever so slightly before resuming their paths. That suggested an interaction, a whisper of gravity, yes, but with intent. Some theorists dared to voice what everyone was thinking. Localized gravitational manipulation. A mass, or mechanism, capable of shaping its gravitational influence on command. That would mean 3I Atlas wasn't just moving through space, it was editing it. Then James Webb stepped in again, and things went from bizarre to unthinkable. Using its mid-infrared instrument, James Webb measured the object's thermal signature as it drifted away from the Sun. Naturally, any comet should cool down once it leaves the heat. But 3I Atlas didn't. It warmed up. That broke every law of passive thermodynamics. The readings showed a steady rhythmic pulse of heat from within the object, a stable internal emission, perfectly consistent and unnervingly regular. Not outgassing, not friction, not radioactive decay. This was controlled energy output, a reactor, not a rock. The data became even stranger when scientists mapped the fluctuations. The heat pulse followed a precise cycle, one every 51.2 minutes, then abruptly switching to 17.07 minutes. At first, it seemed random. Then someone noticed something that stopped the room cold. Those intervals matched exactly with the timing between the gravitational whispers, thermal pulses and space-time distortions, syncing like clockwork. Coincidence? Statistically impossible. Coordination? Almost certain. Whatever 3I Atlas was, it wasn't just reacting to its environment. It was communicating with it. By now, the tone inside mission control rooms had shifted. What began as curiosity had hardened into protocol. At the European Space Operations Center, late-night monitors flickered under fluorescent lights. In NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, emails arrived marked urgent, internal distribution only. Somewhere in a secure meeting room, someone muttered, "This isn't a comet anymore." The International Astronomical Union quietly upgraded 3I Atlas to high-interest non-local object, an unprecedented classification. It wasn't declared dangerous, but it wasn't declared harmless either. Behind the scenes, the world's major space agencies began to act like chess players in the dark. NASA's Swift telescope, built to track gamma-ray bursts, suddenly dedicated part of its observing schedule to 3I Atlas. SphereX, designed for full-sky mapping, rerouted bandwidth to monitor its carbon dioxide emissions. Smaller European observatories received confidential coordination requests. No press releases, no briefings, just quiet adjustments. As data mounted, a chilling hypothesis began whispering its way through private channels. An old idea born decades ago in the mind of mathematician John von Neumann: the self-replicating robotic probe. What if 3I Atlas wasn't just visiting? What if it was observing, or even testing? The probe theory suggested a device designed to travel between stars, replicating itself using local materials, mapping gravitational fields, and sending information home, not through radio waves, but through physical signals. And that's when someone asked the question that changed the tone of the entire discussion. What if the signal isn't meant to be heard but seen? Because the truth is, if a civilization wanted to communicate across millions of years, radio signals would fade. But spectroscopic fingerprints, chemical ratios, heat pulses, gravitational echoes, those could endure forever. So maybe 3I Atlas wasn't broadcasting a message to the stars. Maybe it was the message. A long-term transmission encoded in physics itself, waiting for a species advanced enough to notice. A test hidden in plain sight. As this theory gained traction in the background, something eerie happened. The gravitational whispers, once steady and predictable, started changing. They grew weaker, then irregular. Then suddenly they stopped. All across Earth's telescopes, a brief silence fell. Every model froze, every graph flatlined. It was as if the object had paused, listening back. And then in that silence, something else blinked on the sensors. A faint rhythmic reflection. The timing was perfectly synchronized to the last gravitational pulse. Astronomers stared at their screens in disbelief. Had the signal just bounced back? Whatever was happening, it wasn't random. And it definitely wasn't over. Alien network theories, the lunar echo. Just when astronomers thought they'd seen the weirdest of 3I Atlas, something even stranger arrived, from much closer to home. For more than a decade, NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter has been quietly circling the Moon, mapping craters, measuring radiation, and cataloging dust. But one night, its instruments caught a pulse it couldn't explain, an electromagnetic echo bouncing off the Moon's dark side. Not random static, not solar interference. The frequency pattern was an almost perfect match to the metallic emissions of 3I Atlas. In other words, the Moon had just answered back. At first, scientists assumed it was a coincidence, some fluke of radio overlap. But as the data was replayed, a disturbing symmetry emerged. The signal wasn't reflecting. It was resonating as though the lunar surface, or something beneath it, was responding. Two theories surfaced almost immediately. One suggested that the signal from 3I Atlas had reached the Moon, awakening something long dormant. The other proposed a darker possibility, that something buried deep within the lunar surface had been waiting all along. Both were absurd. Both were terrifying. If Theory 2 was true, then our nearest neighbor wasn't just a dead rock, it was wired. The idea hit like a thunderclap through the astronomy community. What if 3I Atlas wasn't discovering us, but reconnecting? Some even dared to suggest that the Moon might be a kind of ancient relay, a waypoint seeded long before human eyes ever looked up. And then, just as the theories were spiraling out of control, everything went silent. After weeks of regular emissions, 3I Atlas stopped. No nickel vapor, no heat spikes, no signal, nothing. Total stillness. The shutdown came precisely 1 hour after the lunar echo was recorded. Too neat to be chance, too deliberate to ignore. It was as if the object had sent a message, received a reply, and gone dark. Scientists scrambled to reanalyze earlier recordings, feeding terabytes of data through new AI-assisted decomposition algorithms. That's when someone noticed the impossible. Tiny microbursts buried deep within the metallic signal streams. When mapped, they formed a repeating pattern. Not random noise, not natural modulation. Code. The emissions weren't just chemical, they were digital. 3I Atlas had been transmitting information hidden inside its molecular emissions, speaking in a language so advanced that we only noticed it after it stopped talking. The realization hit like a gut punch. It hadn't been hiding. It had been communicating openly. We just hadn't been smart enough to understand. But who was the message for? The shock deepened when astrophysicists cross-referenced the data with unrelated radio phenomena, specifically the deep space fast radio burst 2021124A, detected from a galaxy 400 million light-years away. Its internal structure was nearly identical to the 3I Atlas modulation. That left two explanations. Either this was some kind of universal communication protocol, or both signals were part of the same network. Suddenly, alien artifact didn't sound so far-fetched. 3I Atlas wasn't a lone wanderer. It was part of something vast, coordinated, and deeply intelligent, a system, or worse, a fleet. Defense agencies took notice. Private briefings were held behind closed doors. Theories whispered across encrypted channels spoke of interstellar mesh networks, quantum relays, and molecular encryption. But even those were tame compared to what came next. During a recalibration attempt by the James Webb Space Telescope, astronomers noticed an eerie distortion around 3I Atlas. At first, they thought it was gravitational lensing, but the math didn't add up. The object didn't have enough mass to bend light like that. It wasn't gravity. It was something else, an energy field, active and pulsing, warping the light of background stars in perfect sync with the microburst frequencies, as if the object was not just signaling, but reacting to being observed. Then came the blackout. In every major observatory tracking 3I Atlas, in Hawaii, Chile, South Africa, Australia, and even Antarctica, lost data simultaneously. Telescopes went blind, satellites reported telemetry drops, and then, just like that, the feeds returned. Everything seemed normal until analysts spotted it. 3I Atlas had shifted course, just a fraction of a degree, 0.008 degrees, tiny, almost unnoticeable, but too precise to be random. Something had changed direction. That wasn't the motion of debris. That was maneuvering. If true, it meant 3I Atlas not only knew we were watching, but knew how we were watching. It used our own observation patterns against us to vanish, to hide, or perhaps to move toward whatever waited in the dark. For now, there's only speculation. Maybe it was a probe. Maybe it was a trigger. Or maybe, just maybe, it was a node in a cosmic web older than our species, reaching across light years to reawaken the silent moon above us. Because if 3I Atlas truly was awake, then what happened next wasn't coincidence. The thermal bloom. Something is active. At first, everyone called it a glitch, a global cosmic interference event. Officially, the blackout lasted less than a minute. Unofficially, it was the moment everything changed. For 37 long seconds, every major observatory, satellite, and deep space radar on Earth went blind. Data streams flatlined, sensors froze, and telemetry vanished as if someone had unplugged the universe. Then came the leak. An anonymous whistleblower, claiming ties to the European Space Agency, dropped a classified document onto an encrypted forum. The file, stamped Confidential Lagrange Monitoring Division, described something no one was supposed to see. During the blackout, military-grade infrared satellites detected a thermal bloom originating from the exact coordinates of 3I Atlas. The report called it geometrically anomalous. For 1.3 seconds, a hexagonal radiative pattern had appeared. 6 perfect sides, evenly distributed, radiating heat in impossible symmetry. Nature doesn't make geometry like that. Comets vent gas, asteroids fracture, plasma flares, all chaotic, all asymmetrical. But this looked engineered. For a brief moment, the report read, a shape burned itself across the infrared sky. When the data reached ESA headquarters, someone wrote 3 words in the margin of the transcript: Non-random thermal emission. It was enough to freeze every scientist in the room, because symmetry means control, control means intent, and intent means something was active. As the leak spread across scientific channels, other instruments started reporting oddities, not visual this time, but magnetic. Magnetometers in low Earth orbit detected subtle rhythmic distortions rippling through the Van Allen belts, Earth's natural radiation shield. The disturbance lasted exactly as long as the thermal bloom and aligned perfectly with 3I Atlas's solar position. In simpler terms, when the object flared, Earth's magnetic field twitched. It was small, barely measurable, but precise, too synchronized to dismiss. Some theorized it was interference from solar activity, but space weather records showed nothing. No flares, no coronal ejections, just silence. That left a far stranger explanation. 3I Atlas had interacted with Earth's magnetosphere. Whether it was scanning, pinging, or even communicating through our planet's own electromagnetic shell, nobody could say. But whatever it did, we felt it. Soon the mystery deepened. Seismic sensors in the Indian Ocean, thousands of miles from any tectonic plate boundary, picked up an ultra-low frequency vibration that didn't match anything on record. It wasn't a quake or a submarine or a meteor strike. The pulse repeated every 12 minutes, and it didn't spread outward like normal sound waves. It focused upward, aimed straight into orbit. Hydrophones detected nothing. No sound, just energy. Analysts dubbed it the soundless impact. Some believed it was the Earth itself resonating from the magnetospheric disturbance. Others suspected something far more deliberate, a directed signal sent from the depths, passing through the ocean to reach the satellites above. The next anomaly didn't come from an agency but a startup. A small CubeSat, operated by a private aerospace firm, began behaving erratically during a scheduled orbital test. Its internal temperature plunged 40 degrees below operational range. Its gyroscopes spun out of sync. Then, inexplicably, it started broadcasting a signal it had never been programmed to send. When decoded, the waveform was unmistakable. It matched the microburst pattern found in 3I Atlas's earlier emissions. The CubeSat was echoing the object, not replaying stored data, but transmitting live, as if repeating a message it had absorbed. That meant one thing. 3I Atlas's signal had reached Earth orbit. It had found a relay. It had seeded something. Suddenly, the idea of a passive comet was dead. This was a node, a system capable of replication, a machine or a messenger, maybe both. By now, researchers weren't just analyzing, they were decoding. At 1420 megahertz, the famous hydrogen line, used by SETI as the interstellar hailing frequency, multiple stations picked up a faint pulse. 6 bursts. The sequence was repeated 3 times before fading. When translated from binary, it read 813, 8513, 8. At first it looked like gibberish, but when converted through alphanumeric encoding, it spelled out a simple message. Observe, prepare, understand. The gate awaits. Scientists laughed it off. A prank, surely. But then came the verification. The pulses originated roughly 15,000 kilometers above Earth, ruling out terrestrial interference. It wasn't local, it wasn't random, and it wasn't just a noise. For the first time, the SETI network quietly acknowledged what it had always hoped and feared to find. A deliberate, intelligent transmission. It's hard to describe the feeling in the labs that night. A mix of awe and dread. The realization that the signal wasn't just aimed at us, it might have been waiting for us. Because if 3I Atlas had activated something in lunar orbit, triggered a thermal bloom, disturbed the Earth's magnetosphere, and seeded a satellite to rebroadcast its signal, then this wasn't an encounter. It was a sequence. Each event followed the last steps like in a program. And if that's true, we're not looking at a rock. We're looking at a system booting up. Something ancient, deliberate, and fully aware of where we are. Something that had been quiet until we looked its way. And now, it's looking back. And if the institutions went quiet, the Skywatchers didn't. Because in the age of the internet, secrets don't stay in orbit for long. Modern crowd astronomy takes over. During an episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, Elon Musk weighed in on the mystery of the interstellar object 3I Atlas. Though careful not to confirm any theory, he admitted that its strange trajectory might involve forces beyond simple gravity. Musk suggested that an artificial or non-natural explanation couldn't be ruled out entirely, and if an object of that size ever struck Earth, the outcome would be catastrophic. It could obliterate a continent, he said. Maybe worse. His tone was measured but grim, painting a picture of planetary fragility in the face of the unknown. While Musk took the doomsday route, Dr. Avi Loeb approached the same phenomenon with a touch of humor and a scientist's curiosity. He once joked that if alien artifacts ever entered our solar system, we'd probably find out only after someone on Reddit noticed. When 3I Atlas appeared, that prediction felt eerily accurate. On his blog, Loeb introduced what he called the Loeb scale, a ranking system for interstellar objects, with 0 representing definitely natural, and the 10 marker for definitely technological. Right now, he wrote, I give 3I Atlas a 6, but that might change as we get better data. Then, in classic Loeb fashion, he dropped the line that reignited the debate. There's a 30 to 40% chance it doesn't have a fully natural origin. Think of it as a possible Trojan horse, a technological object disguised as a comet. That one line was all it took. The moment 3I Atlas showed up in telescope feeds, the internet lit up like a solar flare. Reddit threads exploded with speculation. Discord servers turned into mini mission controls, and YouTube channels streamed live anomaly tracking. Someone even started a TikTok trend where users added synthwave soundtracks to real telescope footage, the comet that looks back. In less than a week, hashtags like Interstellar Mirror, Stealth Fragment, and Cosmic Trojan Horse were trending. Amateur astronomers, data analysts, and curious night owls began forming global networks, swapping spectral readings and orbital plots in real time. For the first time in history, crowd astronomy wasn't just a hobby. It was an organized, collective investigation. And strangely, the crowd wasn't wrong to think something weird was happening. NASA and the European Space Agency tried to keep things calm. No impact threat. Standard observation protocol. The usual PR phrasing. But behind the scenes, things shifted. Telescope schedules were quietly rewritten. Satellite instruments got retasked. Data sharing agreements between agencies were suddenly paused. None of this screams cover-up. But in the scientific world, silence speaks volumes. When institutions go quiet, the world starts listening louder. Because 3I Atlas isn't behaving like anything we've seen before. Its tail points toward the sun, the exact opposite of what solar radiation should do. Its composition is even stranger. 8 times more carbon dioxide than water vapor, and traces of vaporized nickel. But no detectable iron. It's like someone built a comet using the wrong cosmic recipe. Then there's the motion. Its trajectory doesn't perfectly obey gravity. It shows faint but measurable course shifts, almost like internal propulsion or sublimation from materials we can't identify. Systems noticed these anomalies before humans did, flagging the object as non-standard days before analysts could even verify the data. So maybe the question isn't whether the object is natural, but whether natural is even the right word anymore. Could 3I Atlas be a fragment from an ancient machine, drifting for eons between stars? Could it be interacting with solar magnetism in ways we don't understand? Or is it simply an emissary from a part of the galaxy so chemically bizarre that it's rewriting our definition of a comet? For now, all we know is this. 3I Atlas is the third confirmed interstellar object ever detected, after Oumuamua in 2017 and 2I Borisov in 2019. But it's nothing like either of them. At 5 to 11 kilometers wide, Atlas is massive, far larger than Oumuamua, closer in scale to some of our system's ancient long-period comets. But unlike them, it's moving too fast to ever return. It came from elsewhere, is passing through, and will vanish again into the dark, taking its secrets with it. Every major observatory has taken its turn pointing toward it. The James Webb Space Telescope recorded infrared spectra showing unexpected metallic signatures. Hubble followed with sharp optical imagery that revealed shifting surface albedo, as if parts of the comet reflect light differently over time. Ground-based powerhouses like Gemini South and the Very Large. Telescope logged hours of observation time. Even Mars orbiters, including TGO and MAVEN, were retasked to collect solar interaction data. What the readings revealed was both thrilling and disquieting. A coma rich in cyanide, carbon dioxide, and nickel vapor. Heavy dust plumes brightening as it neared the sun. Layers upon layers of strange chemistry that didn't match anything in known comet catalogs. For astronomers, this wasn't just about one object. It was about everything we didn't know. About how matter behaves in the void between stars, how elements form in alien environments, how the universe might scatter its relics. And while official channels focused on compositional analysis and orbital data, the public conversation had moved far beyond the science. Podcasts titled The Alien Iceberg racked up millions of plays. TikTokers joked that 3i Atlas was the universe's read receipt. On Reddit, users built open-source software to track the comet's brightness and found patterns NASA hadn't published yet. It wasn't conspiracy, it was curiosity, magnified by a billion connected eyes. Science had suddenly become communal again. And maybe that's the real story here. Not whether 3i Atlas is a probe or a rock, but how it reminded us that discovery doesn't just belong to institutions anymore. It belongs to anyone willing to look up, zoom in, and question what they see. Now, as 3i Atlas races toward its perihelion, the moment it swings closest to the Sun, all we can do is watch. Some comets flare and fragment under that heat. Others survive and vanish silently into the void. And a rare few defy every prediction entirely. What will Atlas do? Will it break apart, revealing hidden layers of metal and dust? Will it flare with materials never seen before? Because despite all our sensors, models, and telescopes, no one can yet explain why its tail points the wrong way. And until we can, 3i Atlas remains one of the greatest unsolved cosmic riddles of our time. A mirror hanging in space, reflecting our own uncertainty back at us. For now, 3i Atlas drifts silently beyond Mars, carrying its secrets back into the dark. But somewhere between the stars and our screens, something has already changed. Not in space, but in us. More people have come out asking that same question over and over again. Do we still think we're alone in this universe? What's your take on this? Share your perspective in the comments section.